She never really loved you. She loved the role you played in her drama. The good man, the soft answer, the steady hand. You were the stability she craved until she no longer feared chaos. You thought she left because you were too kind. No. She left because she had no more use for your kindness. Not when the thrill was gone, not when the mirror cracked. You believed goodness was a shield, but in her world, it was a leash. And the moment she saw you wouldn't bite, she stopped pretending to pet. Her betrayal wasn't sudden. It was always waiting like a wolf behind the eyes of a lamb. You thought you were chosen. You were selected by instinct, by convenience, by hunger. And when you were emptied, she moved on as if love had never spoken your name. You believed that goodness would protect you, that in a world of wolves, the man who does not bite would be cherished for his restraint. You were wrong. Goodness is not a shield in her world, it is a scent. The more you bled empathy, the more the world sensed weakness. You did not walk into a trap, you were the trap. She found in your virtue a perfect cage for her chaos. She smiled not because she loved you, but because she knew you wouldn't run. That was your first mistake. You mistook her comfort for affection, your stillness for presence, her silence for depth. But the truth is simpler. You were useful, and utility masquerades as love until it expires. They do not want the good man, not truly, not when he is predictable, not when his heart opens without demand. There is no drama in a mirror that reflects only peace. She needs a mirror that fractures, something to fight, something to tame. You gave her harmony, but what she craved was conquest. Her instincts never asked, "Is he good?" They asked, "Can he win?" And you, in your soft nobility, whispered, "I don't need to fight." You thought this was strength. She saw it as surrender. You offered safety when she wanted submission. You offered listening when she wanted chaos. You offered presence when she was screaming for polarity. You misread the animal. You thought love would be the antidote to pain, but for her, love is the pain, the delicious instability of not knowing, of chasing, of earning. You robbed her of the struggle, and without struggle, there is no fire. You became the still water in which her reflection bored her. You became the calm in which she drowned. She did not leave because you failed. She left because you succeeded too quietly. She left because you disappeared inside your devotion. You gave everything, and she forgot you were there. That is the curse of the good man. You do not stand out in memory. You vanish behind your offerings. You disappear in your giving. The very things you think make you worthy, your patience, your consistency, your selflessness, become the reason you are forgotten. She remembers the storm, not the shelter. She remembers the chaos, not the calm. And you were the calm. That is what killed you. She does not betray you because she hates you. She betrays you because she can, and because she knows you will not burn her for it. You trained her with your virtue to expect forgiveness, to expect softness, to expect understanding. So when she crosses the line, there is no thrill, no fear, no fire, just another soft landing, another safe man who will suffer in silence and call it love, another mirror that won't crack. She doesn't respect the man who refuses to punish, not because he is wrong, but because he has no consequence. You became weightless in her world. You did not threaten her delusion. You did not shake her illusions. You did not awaken her fear. And so, she grew bored. She grew hungry, not for love, but for intensity, for sensation, for polarity. And she found it elsewhere, not because he was better, but because he was felt. You do not understand the betrayal because you are still translating her instincts through your ideals. You think she must have changed, that something went wrong, that you missed something. But the truth is darker. She never loved your goodness. She needed it until she didn't. She needed the approval of a good man to validate her own fantasy. Once secured, once conquered, Once pacified, you were no longer necessary. You were a trophy she no longer displayed, a softness that reminded her she had no edge. She left not out of malice, but out of boredom. She needed you when she needed to believe she was lovable. She discarded you when that belief turned into certainty. There was never equality, only leverage. She called it connection. You called it mutual care. But beneath the rituals, it was always a transaction. Her femininity in exchange for your validation, her charm for your protection, her illusion for your devotion. And when the exchange rate changed, the contract dissolved. She did not mourn. You did, because you thought it was real. She only mourned her own fading image in your eyes, the version of herself she once saw reflected in your admiration. That is all. You were the good man, and that was the bait. Your sincerity, your loyalty, your romanticism, they drew her in, but not for who you are, for what she could extract. The good man is the perfect vessel for the woman who is still addicted to being adored. She is not evil, but she is not innocent either. She uses what works. She adapts. She tests. And when she no longer receives the spark, the validation, the friction, the uncertainty, she seeks it elsewhere. Not because you changed, but because you stayed. The tragedy is not that she left. The tragedy is that you still think being good should have been enough. You are not wrong to be good, but you are wrong to expect it to be honored. In her world, goodness without danger is decoration, and you were beautiful until you became predictable. She never feared losing you, and that is what killed the love. You were never the man who could leave, never the man who could destroy, never the man who could say no. She knew it, she felt it, and so she took and took and took until there was nothing left to consume. Then she left, and you were surprised. That is the final illusion that goodness creates security. But without polarity, without resistance, without sovereignty, goodness becomes a servant, and she does not make love to her servants. You were bait, not because you are weak, but because you are still waiting to be loved for your virtue. That is the fatal error. You must choose to be good or to be sovereign. You cannot have both and expect her to stay, not unless your goodness bites, not unless your virtue bleeds consequence, not unless your softness rests on a throne of steel. She turned on you not because you were kind, but because your kindness was cheap, given without price, offered without presence. Goodness without power is furniture. You were a chair she sat in until she found a fire, and now you sit among the ruins of your intentions, still wondering what went wrong, still believing that being a good man should have saved you, but you were never chosen. You were selected by instinct, by necessity, and now by silence you are replaced. You remember her smile, not the first one, not the one painted in politeness, but the second quiet, tilted, like she knew something you didn't. That was the real one. The one that told you you were already in her grip. You saw beauty, she saw leverage, you saw possibility, she saw utility. That is how the game begins. Not with love, not with longing, but with assessment. You are not chosen, you are measured. Your kindness, your availability, your softness. These are weights on her scale. And when she finds the balance tilted just right, safe, generous, predictable, you are pulled into her story. Not as a partner, but as a device. She will name it love. You will believe her. That is the trap. The trap is not a lie. The trap is the partial truth. She did feel something, a fleeting magnetism, a curiosity, a hunger to be seen through your reverent eyes, but it was never about you. It was about the version of herself that reflected off your gaze. She came to drink her own beauty, not to taste your soul. She came to feel wanted, not to want. And once that reflection dulled, once your gaze normalized her allure, once the high faded, so did her interest. The smile stayed, but it was no longer for you. You spoke of love. She responded with performance. You offered trust. She returned with delay. You thought patience would earn intimacy. She mistook it for permission. The more you gave, the more she withdrew. The more you exposed, the less she responded. You thought it was miscommunication. No, it was completion. The transaction was done. You gave her what she needed: a mirror, a pedestal, a sanctuary. And once she had it, she moved on. She does not change. She reveals. The betrayal you feel is not the moment she left it, is the slow erosion of meaning in every glance, every reply, every touch that once seemed so full but now rings hollow. She did not become cold. She always was. You simply melted fast enough to keep her warm for a while. But fire needs resistance, desire needs distance, and you, in your eagerness to be close, killed the gravity. She smiled, but not because she loved you. She smiled because she knew you were already hers. You underestimated the instinct, not the romantic one, the survival one. The woman does not seek goodness. She seeks power disguised in presence. She tests not to understand, but to provoke, to shake the snow globe of your identity and see what remains. She needs the man who is not moved, not because he is cruel, but because he is centered. You were not centered. You orbited her, and she grew tired of being the sun. You must understand the betrayal did not begin with another man. It began in her boredom. It began when your adoration stopped challenging her, when your goodness became routine, when your loyalty turned to background noise. She needed tension, and you offered devotion. She needed polarity, and you offered peace. And so, she smiled knowing the trap was closed. Not because you did wrong, but because you were complete, predictable, finished. In the secret chambers of her instinct, a man must not be a solution. He must be a storm she cannot name, something wild she cannot own. You made yourself ownable. You gave her the map to your soul, and then acted surprised when she walked straight through it, found the center, and walked out without knocking anything over. You were careful, and careful men do not excite chaos. They comfort it. Until chaos forgets they exist. Her betrayal was not violent. It was casual. That is what hurts most. She did not rage, did not scream, did not explain. She simply drifted. You became the man she no longer texted back. The man she once laughed with, now replaced by a scroll, a sigh, a silence. You begged for clarity, but she had none to give. Her instinct had moved on. Her body was still there. Her smile, too, but the soul, gone. You were still inside the house, but she had already locked the windows from the outside. And you will ask again where it went wrong. You will replay every memory, looking for a crack. But the crack was always there. It just grew in silence. And one day, it became a canyon. She did not fall. She crossed and left you on the edge, wondering what you missed. But you missed nothing. You saw everything. You just refused to believe it. That is the second betrayal, not hers, yours. The way you betrayed your own intuition, the way you silenced the doubts, the way you excused the red flags, the way you clung to the dream because the dream was sweeter than the truth. You saw the cold in her eyes long before she left. You felt the absence in her touch long before she pulled away. But you stayed, not out of love but out of hope. And hope, for the good man, is often just delayed heartbreak. You thought love would save her, that if you just loved harder, deeper, more patiently she would awaken, that your goodness would unlock her heart. But her heart was never yours. It was a house she invited you into because it was winter, and once spring came, she needed the space back. You were not betrayed. You were returned. She gave you back to yourself, bruised, hollow, awake. And now you stand in the mirror, not mourning her, but mourning who you were when you believed in her. That man, bright-eyed, open-handed, soft with certainty, is gone. And what remains? A shell, a question, a silence where your name once echoed in someone else's smile. But this is not the end. This is the unveiling. The part where you stop asking what she felt and start asking why you needed her to feel anything at all. The part where you realize her betrayal was not personal. It was instinctual, necessary, a correction. You were too easy to enter, too easy to exit. The door must become heavier now, not locked but heavy, heavy with sovereignty, with consequence, with absence. She will return, not because she regrets, but because she remembers the ease, the warmth, the safety. She will test the door, she will smile again, and you will feel the old ache rise. But this time, you must not answer, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. The clarity that comes when you finally understand her love was a mask, and her smile the beginning of the end. You were never a man in her story. You were a stage, a backdrop, a soft landing before the next ascent. And now the curtains have closed, not with applause, but with silence. You do not chase her ghost. You bury the mirror, and in the glass, you no longer see her. You see what was always there, a man whose kindness was never the problem, only his belief that it would be enough. You thought it was love. You believed in the trembling confessions, the way her voice softened when she spoke your name, the warmth of her fingers when they reached for you in the night. But now, in the ruin of those memories, you begin to see it was never you she craved. It was the reflection, the lie, the drama of being wanted by a man who would never hurt her, never leave her, never threaten the pedestal on which she had placed her own desire. You were not the object of her longing. You were the frame. She did not love you. She loved the way you made her feel about herself. And that difference is everything. You were the lie she could believe in while her mirror still needed polishing. The noble man, the pure heart, the safety net. She did not choose you because she saw your soul. She chose you because your silence was the perfect place to project her fantasies. You became a canvas, and the moment the painting dried, she turned away. What aches now is not the loss of her, but the realization that your love was never touched. It was watched, tolerated, used. It was a stage she stood upon while performing the idea of intimacy. Every smile was rehearsed, every kiss timed, every compliment was a line in a script you didn't know you were reading. She played the part well, and you applauded, believing the show was real. But when the curtains fell, she did not bow. She disappeared, and left you clutching your heart in an empty theater. The good man is not betrayed because he is bad. He is betrayed because he does not see that in some eyes, love is not sacred. It is strategic. The more unconditional you became, the more conditional her attention grew. The more transparent your devotion, the more invisible you became. She needed to feel powerful, and you, in your submission, offered her the throne. But she never wanted to rule, only to test that she could. Once proven, her interest faded. She did not want peace, she wanted polarity, and you gave her only presence. Her affection was not affection, it was self-calibration. She measured her worth through your desire. She gauged her beauty through your longing. And when she had confirmed what she needed to believe, you were no longer required. You think she left for someone else? No, she left for herself, for the version of her that no longer needed your approval. You were the tool, the scaffold, the lie she leaned on until she stood tall enough to look beyond you. She did not use you maliciously, she used you instinctively. That is worse, because it means she never truly saw you. You were a mirror held just right for just long enough. And when it cracked from your exhaustion, from your pain, from your questions, she called it incompatibility. She called it change, but it was always expiration. You expired when you stopped being her proof, when your gaze no longer fed her illusion, when your soul demanded something real. And in that moment when you asked for truth, for depth, for reciprocity, she vanished, not out of cruelty, but because the lie could not survive the light. You wanted love, she wanted belief, and those are not the same. You wanted to know her soul, she wanted to feel her image. You offered yourself, she took what she needed, and now you are here, shattered in the silence, trying to understand how something that felt so full could end so empty. You were not broken, you were bypassed. She walked through you, not into you. She touched your body, but not your being, and you let her, because you thought your sincerity would summon hers. But sincerity does not summon, it exposes. And when she was exposed, when her shallowness could no longer hide behind your kindness, she turned. Not because she wanted to, but because she could not continue. The lie needed you. It needed your belief, your steadiness, your hope. It needed the way you looked at her like she was more than she knew herself to be. That was the drug, not your touch, not your soul, but your gaze. She was addicted to your perception of her. And the moment that perception cracked when you saw the manipulation, the distance, the avoidance, her grip slipped. She was never holding you. She was holding the version of herself reflected in your love. And now the silence speaks louder than her laughter ever did. Now you replay every moment, not with nostalgia, but with suspicion. Was it ever real? Did she ever feel? Did you ever matter? These questions claw at you. But the answer is not found in her. It is found in the void she left behind. The shape of her absence reveals the truth you were never known, only needed. And when that need ended, so did her presence. You cannot fix this. You cannot explain it away. You cannot redeem it with better timing or deeper love. Because what died was never real. What ended was never mutual. It was a performance beautiful, convincing, but hollow. You loved, she acted, you gave, she received, you hoped, she fed. And now you are here, awake in the wreckage, realizing the most painful truth of all. It is not that she lied. It is that you were the lie she believed in long enough to heal her wound. You want to scream. You want to warn the next man. You want to erase her from memory. But you cannot. Because she did not take from you. She revealed you. She revealed the part of you that still believes love should hurt. That devotion must go unreturned. That being good must be enough. She revealed the lie you carry, that you must be chosen to be worthy. Let that lie die here. Let the ghost of her smile fade without explanation. Let the echo of her voice dissolve without reply. She was a mirror, and mirrors are not meant to be held. They are meant to be looked into once and then left behind. You are not the fool. You are the witness. You have seen the machinery of need disguised as affection. You have touched the cold pulse of a love that was never yours. And now you know not all that glitters is gold. Not every soft hand holds warmth. Not every I love you comes from a place that can love back. She needed you, but not for who you are, only for the reflection. And now that the reflection is broken, you are free. But freedom is not sweet. It is quiet. It is cold. It is the slow sobering from a dream you mistook for life. You do not chase her. You do not hate her. You close the mirror, and you walk away. Not healed, but real. There is a room in your memory you cannot return to. A room where her laughter still lingers like perfume. But when you open the door, no one is there. Only a shadow. Only a name that once meant fire, now folded into silence. You do not need to understand why she left. You only need to understand why you stayed. And in that quiet, something begins to move. Not anger, not hope, just the faint sound of footsteps your own, walking away from the lie that needed you, toward a truth that asks for nothing.